Vanakkam, Namaste. Tonight we have a marvelous treat, a scintillating interaction with one of the leading Yogacharinis of the Gitananda Yoga tradition, Yogacharini Kalavathi Devi of Wales, UK. She was given the name Kalavathi because of her extraordinary talent in artistic design. She has excelled in the drawings of exquisite mandalas and traditional columns. She is the director of Om Yoga Studio in Wales and has led hundreds of students in Swamiji's Yoga Step-by-Step correspondence course. A charismatic teacher, she has brought scores of her students to India to study in the ashram. She is a mother of two who is supported by her husband, Lloyd, who is the professor of sound engineering at the University of Cardiff and a skilled musician. Now let her speak for herself. Welcome.
Namaste, Dhivya. Very nice to be here.
So happy to have you on my 4th episode of the Global Voices. I know these numbers don't matter much, just it's nice to have all of you.
They've been fantastic. I've been watching them all and I'm looking forward to seeing all the others to follow.
Yes, I'm very sure. Okay, so we are now hopping into the question section. So are you ready?
I am absolutely ready.
So we are going to start the first section, that's the definition section. What is your own personal definition of the word yoga?
Wow, what a question. Okay. Do you know, I was thinking about this and I was thinking how, you know, when you first come into hearing about yoga, obviously it's a very physical practice. You know, people hear of a yoga class and they think of stretching, maybe a bit of breathing, maybe relaxation, maybe standing on your head, putting your feet behind your head. You have all of these kind of views when you first think of yoga. I can remember when I came to the ashram, which is 20 years ago now, before you were born, and did the 6-month course with your mother. I can remember feeling like everything she taught was making everything put into place. You know, it's like you'd gone home, like everything was right, everything made sense. And I can remember feeling quite overwhelmed one day, thinking how yoga was everything. You know, it wasn't just this sort of physical practice that you perhaps did on a yoga mat, although I had done a lot of research, you know, before I'd ended up in the ashram. But so I knew there was an awful lot more to it than that. But I did have this feeling of how yoga was everything. And I think, you know, that feeling that I had then, you know, when I think about it now, yoga really, in some ways, it isn't really anything. It's more just like a state of being. And to actually be able to say what yoga is to, you know, to be able to explain something that perhaps you can't even hold on to or see or grasp. So it's quite sort of hard to, you know, explain, especially, as I said, if it is something like a state of being, you know, it is hard to really articulate and describe, you know, using words. But I think, you know, if yoga is a state of being, if you're able to reach the state of being that, you know, you can reach, and I don't think it's necessarily always just through doing practices on a yoga mat that can get you there. You know, some of the most yogic people that you might come across in your life have maybe never even been to a yoga class or, you know, done some different things on a yoga mat. So it's quite a hard thing to say, really, isn't it? You know, what is yoga? I think there has to be, for sure, consciousness. And consciousness is something that obviously grows and evolves as you grow. But I think ultimately, whatever your path is, if it can lead you to that state, which is yoga, you know, it can just be like a moral, ethical life. You're just living a good life that can get you to that, you know, that same kind of state. So I think yoga is something that's kind of out there that we just can all reach or tap into, and I think until you're fully there, it could be a very hard thing to fully, put into words. So yes, yoga is a state of being.
Wow, really good and so beautifully put. And I think you covered every possible thing. And it is true that we never actually know everything. We have to keep going on the path, and one day we can reach the best. Never like knowing every single thing. So that was really nice. So we are moving to the next one, the sadhana section. You are a busy mother, wife, yoga teacher, and running a popular yoga studio. How do you find time for your own yoga sadhana?
Okay, sadhana is another one, Divya. What is sadhana? What even is sadhana? I think when you first come across the term sadhana, you're going to again associate it with doing something physical on a yoga mat. So, when you go and practice your sadhana, you associate with practices, that you're doing perhaps early in the morning on a daily basis. And I think that's how it starts. You get yourself into this kind of rhythmic, the 3 R's, rhythm, repetition, and regularity. So you get yourself into this kind of routine. There you go, as a 4th R, routine. And I think as you go through life, different things happen. In my instance, I had children, so trying to keep that kind of routine going with 2 young children, certainly isn't easy. So that physical aspect of being on the mat, I would dip in and out of that as and when you could. Even coming to India with 2 young children, I can remember not getting to as many classes initially when I would arrive as I would want to, because the children were adjusting to the different time difference, perhaps wanting my attention. And I can remember, feeling sort of frustrations there of not being able to, perhaps join those early morning yoga classes at the very beginning. And realizing as well, though, it's not just about what you're doing on a mat. It's sometimes it's just being there. Certainly being in India, being in the ashram, but also that sadhana is something that kind of changes as you get older, changes as you grow in whatever your sort of life journey is. And I think sadhana really becomes very much, it can become your life. I think sadhana for me now is probably my teaching. A lot of my teaching is my sadhana as well, especially when I'm doing my courses. So obviously in the teaching the general classes, I'm teaching about 10 general classes a week. So there's a lot of physical practice going on there because I'm doing pretty much everything, with them. And absolutely able to breathe as I teach. So I'm not just giving instructions and not breathing along with what I'm instructing at the same time. So I'm very much in there with the flow of everything that I'm teaching. But also the courses as well, where I'm sort of taking people deeper and training people. That very much, I think, becomes part of my sadhana as well, because it's about them, but I learn as well. I learn from my students. I learn from the teachings. I learn from the different practices that we're doing. So I think sadhana is something that it's what you make it, really. It can be something that is very much part of your whole life, and I think that's how it has to be, because your life, is constantly changing. And as I get older, the physical things, a lot of things stay the same, but some of those are going to start to change. And I think a lot of more internal aspects will start to introduce themselves a lot more as well. So I don't think there is one sadhana. Sadhana is this kind of evolving thing that moves with you through your whole life.
Very true. And I loved your 4 R's. You are the 4th episode. We have 4 R's. That's really nice. And your explanation of, yes, your explanation of how taking care of the family and teaching is your sadhana. So you are living your sadhana in that way. So that's very true. Like, that's not something other than this. This is not different and that's different. It's a combination. And if you take it that way, sure, and really nice to hear that. And I wanted to ask this question to you especially. because I know you're quite a busy woman.
Very busy.
So moving on to the next. I can see that, and I know everyone sees that. So the third one, contemporary yoga scene. What is your opinion of the status of the contemporary yoga scene, especially in the present time of the corona crisis?
Wow. So contemporary yoga, again, this is one that I kind of can't make my mind up on, okay? Because there's one aspect of the modern yoga scene that makes me want to tear my hair out and go, oh my God, what are they doing? You know, there's so much rubbish out there. You know, there really is so much going on that's absolutely not yoga, other than they might bend their body in a few different ways and it looks like yoga. So you have that side of it. There's a lot of good stuff out there as well. There really is. There's a lot of people out there with all the right intentions. And involved in things that are very true to themselves and have the best view and best ideals of yoga that they're trying to impart. So it's not all bad, but a lot of this sort of not yoga. As much as it's you can't even compare it to what we teach and what we know. There's it's so far removed from all of that, yet it's actually doing some good for people. There must be so many people attending these yoga classes, and there might be no focus on the breath. There might be, it might be really just an aerobic exercise using different physical postures, which they're calling yoga because, of that association. But there must be so many people going to those classes that perhaps would not get involved in any other kind of activity, any other kind of sports, and it's going to give a lot to those people. So I do find it hard. Because if it wasn't called yoga, maybe those people wouldn't be interested in it because it would be a sport, and they're not interested in sport. So it's really quite tricky to evaluate a lot of what's going out there in the modern world. But there are some frustrations there, especially when some of this really stupid stuff is going on, and you see it online. With regards to COVID-19. Again, there's going to be an awful lot of good out there. You're going to get a lot of people, it might be their lifeline because they're doing their little online YouTube yoga video, or maybe, their teachers online or what have you. One of the things that I was very aware of when this first, the pandemic first started to happen, and we were in that very strange period of not knowing what was going on. We were seeing what was happening to Italy. And we were getting to the stages of it had just come to the UK, and people were trying to work out what to do, and were we going to be able to carry on teaching in our studios, or what was going to happen. And suddenly it all happened really quickly, and we all virtually just had to shut down and go online very, very quickly. That in itself is something I never in a million years thought I would ever do. Because up until that point, I've always thought you have to be with your teacher, and I didn't think that real learning could happen in that online scenario. So the COVID-19 situation with regards to yoga, because I have gone online, I've taken all my classes online and my courses, and it's really opened my mind to realise that things can be done a slightly different way. I don't think online can replace a teacher, and I don't think you should necessarily not have that physical aspect of a teacher, either having to do it purely online and never to have had any contact. But it really has opened my mind up and made me see that it can be done. But I think it's got an awful lot to do as well with what you're teaching, how you're teaching, and obviously the students. And it comes back to that kind of triangle, really, doesn't it? You know, the teaching's the student and the teacher, and they all have to input. There is an energy there between them, and I think that can be created online. But I do much prefer teaching, obviously, in the studio. It's harder teaching online because there's a lot more focus on you. You know, you don't have that sort of group energy, that you would have in a room with the people there, and that interaction isn't the same. So it is harder, I think, for teaching in this Zoom scenario. If you're just churning out recorded videos, that's a completely different thing. But to have that sort of Zoom kind of class, I do have my students unmuted so that if they want to say something, they can.
There was a small issue. I'm so sorry for what happened.
No problem. I'm here just waiting. Just take your time. And when you manage to sort it out, we can carry on. So, Dr. Ananda, could this be a pay attention to detail issue? Because we're a fourth session. I might just take this opportunity, though, to tell everybody something. One of my students, Adele, mentioned to me a way to raise some money for the ashram. And that would be that recently Dr. Ananda was on one of his courses, and he was showing talking about the T-shirt that I'd made him, and he wore it as well, which was a T-shirt of the Ganesha that I've had painted on my yoga studio. And she suggested that maybe we could sell these T-shirts, and which I thought was a great idea. So what we're doing is we are advertising the Ganesha yoga T-shirts that Dr. Ananda has been wearing, and all of the profits from the T-shirt. So the only thing that's going to come out of the money is going to be the T-shirt printing and the T-shirt and any postage. The rest of all the money is going to go to the ashram. So please keep a lookout for this advert. It's going all over Facebook. Hopefully Amaji might pop the advert into Yoga Life, so it'll go there as well. So yeah, keep a lookout, place an order if you can. And it's a way of donating to the ashram and getting a little memento as well. So there's my little advert.
I think we had some technical issues. Something went wrong, and this is the fourth episode. So from the yantra, we know that 4 really goes down. So be careful, but whatever. So we just keep moving on and do our best.
We'll just take a few moments and come back. I will see if Kalavathi can come back in. And we are on live stream, and if we can get Kalavathi back in, 1 second. I will just get Kalavathi back in. Somehow, what has happened is we have had a call drop, basically. I'll just try to get Kalavathi back online, and always pay attention. So that's what we are learning. Just try it out, and we'll continue from where we are. Yes.
Coming.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so
Hello. Do you know, I was still on for ages. So I used the opportunity to advertise the T-shirt.
whatever, it turned out well, but still I didn't think of that 4. You see, we were going through it in Yantra for already 6 classes and still it didn't strike me. Well, whatever. It's a good example. So everyone who's a 4, please pay to attention. And if you're doing on a 4th episode or anything relating to 4, be careful. Take the example from both of us.
Absolutely. Are we live, Divya, or are we still waiting?
Yes.
You are
We
still
are live. We
You
are
are still
live.
live.
Yes.
Okay, so we are back.
Okay. So I think we'll move on to the 4th question. To just
Yeah.
And it's again a 4, so okay. Careful and pray to God.
Well, I paid a lot of attention to this question, Divya. So let's see what happens.
Okay, yes. We are going to face the challenge and we are ready with heads up and everything. So moving on to the 4th, Yogi Character section. What, in your opinion, is the worst character flaw in a yogi?
Okay, so I wasn't sure if this was a trick question or not. Okay, so so my first answer is that you asked me what the worst flaw in a yogi would be. So I would say that if somebody were a yogi, they wouldn't really have any flaws. Okay, but I would say that for people who think they are yogis, the worst flaws would probably be the fact that they think they're yogis. Okay, so that would be either ignorance or ego. Okay, that's my answer.
You really did a good job. Like, I was tricking you there, so you found out in the starting. Great. We're done with 4. Hooray! We can move on to 5.
Yes.
So we are moving on to the 5, yoga teaching section. So you have become a well-known yoga teacher in UK. Well, everyone knows that and I know that. What do you feel is your greatest accomplishment?
Do you know what? My greatest accomplishment is my children.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah, it is my children. Huh?
Unexpected answer.
Because when you when you have that interest and love and life of yoga that I do, you kind of, and you're teaching, you kind of think, right, I'm going to teach my children, we're going to have all these regular yoga classes, and they're going to, I mean, I would have loved to my children to have grown up, you know, in a situation like you did with Yogacharini at Chilayan, where they've got all those regular children classes. So I always kind of thought, right, I'm going to run children's classes for yoga. And I did a kind of a few here or there. And I mean, when they were little, they came to a lot of the classes that I taught, because they just went everywhere, you know, that I went. But I did think that I would run children's classes in yoga, but it never actually happened. And the few times when I did run children's yoga classes, when my children were, you know, younger, and they came with me, it was always a nightmare. You know, it was all well, they were messing, especially Keshavan, he would mess around, and you're trying to teach other people's children when you've got your own children there, and it was hard work because you haven't got anyone else to help. So it never really took off the ground. And I always had this sort of thing in me, feeling like, oh, you know, I never did it for them, and I really wished I had. And I, you know, there was a kind of an element of a feeling of, you know, maybe not having offered them what I could have done. You know, I could have done it and I didn't do it. Then they go through sort of the teenage years, where mum being a yoga teacher is the most embarrassing thing ever. And they're not interested, and you know, what have you. And then, you know, they've gone into these sort of older teenage years now, where they're starting to realise that actually having a yoga teacher mum is quite cool. And, you know, it's a little bit different. And there's been certain times, like there was Keshavan once, he's at college studying sport. So he's just done his 2 years of college, and in September he'll be off to university to carry this on. And I think it was in his first year of college, so he was sort of 16, 17. And they were in one of their lessons, and they were studying different aspects of sport, you know, and they were trying different things out. And they were having a lesson on yoga and relaxation. And their teacher just put a video on that she'd got off of YouTube. And they're all in the class joining in. And at the top of his voice, halfway through, he went, "This isn't yoga." When he told me this, I was like, "You did that in the middle of the class?" He said, "Well, it wasn't." I said, "Well, what did you say?" He said, "Well, I just said, at best, this is a bit of stretching and a bit of breathing thrown in, you know?" And I was so proud of him because he could tell, you know, I mean, obviously he's been to the ashram a lot. But as much as he hadn't regularly been to any yoga class, he's been to, you know, a handful of your Yogacharini Naturally Lion classes on the different visits, you know, when he was younger. But it made me realise that so much yoga has gone into both of my two children, even though I didn't specifically teach them a children's yoga class. And I have two sort of, they're 16 and 18-year-old children. They are confident children who are both very moral, very ethic. They're very people. They're very good at judging situations, working out the best way to respond to situations. And I just look at them and I think, wow, you know, they've not really practiced yoga as in that sense, but they are so yogic, you know, they are, and I'm so proud of them. And they are really, you know, my greatest accomplishment in yoga. They really are. And I just think, sometimes they say things that blow my mind. And I can't believe that they've said that, and they've perhaps said even come up with an even better response to a situation than I could, you know. So yeah, if you can make your children better than you, then, you know, brilliant. And I think they will be. I think they'll both do really well. And you know, especially in the modern world, you know, to bring your children up, it's really hard. You know, there's so many different things that pull them in all sorts of different directions, you know, all their activities, you know, the internet, all these different things that pull them, you know, around. And to be able to bring kids up so that they turn out as decent human beings, you know, I'm not bothered what they end up doing, you know, but as long as they are, you know, good human beings that can fit well into society and you know, be a good person and, you know, treat people well around them. You've done a really good job. But interestingly, Keshavan has been saying to me how he's desperate to come back to the ashram. So he has some, and he says he doesn't want to come just for a holiday. He wants to join in more. So he has some yearning inside. So maybe one day we can perhaps see him on the 6-month course or something. So it has to carry on happening for people, you know, for these youngsters to come through and, you know, be able to get that experience. So yeah, my children are my greatest yogic accomplishment.
That was really great. And I was actually looking forward of hearing both of them before. I was like, why isn't she mentioning even one of them? Like, I was a little, but now I'm really happy that this question brought that out, because that's my thing. The main goal of this is, if you're a married couple or you have a family, I want the people to know about the family members. Like, they might not be seen on screen, but they are supporting you in their own way by showing their love in different ways. So
Absolutely.
that happened. Okay, so we had a lot of struggle in this one, but we have made it across the 5, and now we have the rapid fire, and I'm sure we will push out all this fire out of this 4th episode.
Okay.
Okay, so shall we start?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Mandala.
Colon. And a colon for anybody that doesn't know is the most beautiful mandala, well, the elaborate ones are mandala type patterns that are made on the floor using your hand with ground rice, and you can add color. And Dhivya does amazing columns, don't you, Dhivya?
I've seen them on, especially my dad has some photos of it in the background. They're really good.
Thank you.
Okay, so hopping on to the next one, COVID-19.
That is opportunities. It is creating opportunities in many different ways.
So the third one, Dharma.
Dharma is kind of living and knowing that you're living, doing the right thing. But one thing that these questions brought up with me is sadhana and dharma. They start to go like this, because if you're living your dharma and doing the right thing, then that becomes your sadhana, and your sadhana also, yeah. So it was quite interesting how those two started to fuse together when you brought those up.
Very true. Yeah. Then fourth one, your children.
Big love, deep joy, and lots of frustrations.
So next one, Satya.
Satya is living your truth, which again becomes your dharma and links again back to sadhana. You get all these links in yoga. It's really wonderful. I think in many ways it's all the same thing. Once you get to those deeper aspects, but you do see all these links.
Next one, Swadhyaya.
Knowing who you are. Many people have got no idea who they are. And we still don't fully necessarily completely know who we are. And we surprise ourselves sometimes, and we're all constantly growing, but it is about knowing who you are, how you work.
Okay, this one, I think I'm really looking forward. Dr.Ananda.
Dr.Ananda. Do you know, I thought about this, and I thought, because it is a quick fire round, and it's meant to be short and snappy. And you can't do Ananda, can you, really, in short and snappy? Because he's such a big energy, but a big character. But the one word that I thought that I would say, just to sum him up, but I wanted to give a little something else as well afterwards. So my one word to sum him up would be Superman, which, because he is, and your mother as well, in the same sense. They both do so, your grandmother, Ammaji. They both do so much, and you sit back and you can't believe that they can do so many things and be in so many places. And he's online, he's going to work, he's doing different talks and papers, and things are coming through emails and Facebook, and yeah, it's absolutely incredible the amount of stuff that he does. But I've had the absolute pleasure of knowing your father for 20 years, and I kind of likening him to like a snowball. So Dhivya, you did have a little experience, I think. Did you go to one of those indoor places where they have snow in India? Did you go? I can't remember. Maybe somebody else. Okay, so when you make a snowball, you gather up the snow and go like that in your hands, okay?
Okay, yes.
What you can do, if there was a hill, you could put the snowball at the top of the hill, and you can push it, and you keep pushing it, and it will start to roll. And as it rolls, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it goes faster and faster and faster and faster. And that is kind of what I've seen your father do in the last 20 years. He just keeps growing and growing, and it's quite incredible to watch, to see how everything. He's just got this vast amount of knowledge that keeps evolving. It is incredible. And he's a wonderful person. He's got the biggest heart. He sees the absolute good in everybody. And it really is an absolute pleasure, to be able to be so close to him. I have utmost love and respect for your father. He is Superman.
Really, in the rapid fire, I would expect people to be fast, but you have done it in the best way that you can. I would say that. I wouldn't have loved it if you would have put it in any other way. So you really explained them.
I'll rapid fire the best, Dhivya.
So the next one, Ananda Ashram.
Home.
Oh, yes.
welcome back home as soon as possible.
I will.
Okay, next, chakras.
Energy of life.
Beautiful. Last one, bhajans.
Songs for the spirit. You can't beat a good bhajan.
They're really nice when you sing the bhajans. I wanted to ask you especially the mandala question and about my father and the bhajan, the questions that I saved for especially you.
Oh,
Others So thank you so much for cooperating, and I hope I haven't disappointed all of you out there, and we tried our best, and it is the 4th. So now I've learned a big lesson and I'm not going to forget it again. And such a basement. So Kalavathi, your amazing positive energy has lifted the spirits of all of our yoga family worldwide. Thank you for gracing us. Your presence is a blessing.
You're an absolute sweetheart, Divya. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.